Didn't see you there, sorry. Welcome to a special year-in review episode of Lord of the Collections. I'm your host, Tyler Macklem, and this is my co-host, Valkrist, and we are joined once again by Ben Schenk. So this was a very busy year for collectors, and we had initially thought about doing just every Lord of the Rings collectible that was released this year in 2022. And that we quickly realized that was going to be a monster of an episode. And so we are here tonight and we're going to discuss Weta's releases for the 20th anniversary of the Two Towers, and our thoughts on the pieces, our favorites, what we liked, what we didn't like. And so sit back, get your eggnog or whatever you're drinking these days for the holidays, and enjoy. So early in January last year, Weta released the Balrog Classic Series. What were you guys' thoughts on it? Was it a hit? Was it a miss for you guys? How did you like it?
Yeah, I'll jump in first on that one. I think that one took people by surprise. I don't think Balrog was one of the characters that most people were expecting to see in the classic series, and at least not right away. And also, I think most of us felt that the way that the concept of that particular line had been described, and given the first couple of figures that we'd gotten on it, that it would be, generally human like normal characters, not necessarily jumping into the monster, especially ones that would have to be scaled down to be part of that series. So it was surprising. I mean, we've had a small Balrog before, back from the sideshow days. I have that one. And so, yep, there it is. And I have the large, I don't have the what's known in the collecting community as the Daddy Rog, which is the bigger one, the limited edition one that came out from the sideshow Weta days. I was not yet collecting statues at the time, so I unfortunately missed out on that one, which is a Grail. I do have the one, I'm trying to remember all the terms for them. There's the Demon of Shadow and Flame, and there's the Flame of Udun. Sorry?
I was gonna say, there's the Daddy Rog and there's the Baby Rog. And then there's like the one that...
Yeah, I was trying to find their actual names as on the boxes. I think Flame of Udun is the smaller, the Baby Rog, and Demon of Shadow and Flame is what is that one called? Which one's Daddy Rog?
The Daddy Rog's the original.
The original?
The original sideshow Weta one.
The sword that came out later is Big Rog or something.
That's the third.
Anyways, getting off track here. It was a miss for me. Let's just shoot straight to the point. I didn't like the pose. I thought it was it wasn't. I know, to keep the cost down, they couldn't get too crazy with it and have its wings spread out or anything like that. It's obviously scaled down, but I found the pose to be a little awkward, not very menacing for what the character is that they're representing.
Right.
And yeah, it was just too similar to the original Unlimited Baby Rog, which I have. I'm actually currently trying to get rid of it. Just no room for it in my collection as I have the bigger one. So yeah, there was a very easy pass for me. Haven't changed my mind since. No regrets. I think that some people that have received them have since said that, they kind of changed their mind a little bit on liking it. But yeah, not for me.
How about you, Ben?
I mean, I'm pretty much with Valkrist on it. I mean, it was kind of a surprise to find that it was, incorporated into the line. And it's kind of, it's not really in step with the rest of the pieces. It's kind of contorted and it looks a little off when you compare it next to some of the other classic pieces. And I love I think the classic line is some of their best work, really. So I will probably get it. I currently I don't have it yet, but I'll probably get it just so I can, give a better analysis of it, But, I wasn't a huge fan right out the gate, compared to the other ones that I'd seen, but
Yeah. So that.
But like Valkyrie said, some other people have seen it and had it and said it's it changed their mind a little bit having it in person. And it may be one of those pieces that are like that. I remember like the Yaznag. You remember Yaznag from The Hobbit?
Yeah.
No one liked that piece. Weta ended up selling it for like $8 on one of their sales. And I mean, it wasn't 8, but it was dang close. I think it was 19 or something like that.
Right.
And when I got that piece, I was absolutely amazed at how detailed it was. And I mean, maybe one of those pieces, where you get it and you're pleasantly surprised. But
yeah. For me, it was a miss too. Like I think when everyone was speculating on what new classic series piece we were going to get, I don't think anybody picked the Balrog. I know I didn't. And it was more like, it felt off. Like, yeah, it looked like the baby Rog. The pose kind of reminded me of like a back clinging to a stalactite, or and it just didn't have the presence that I want in a Balrog statue. And maybe that statue just isn't for collectors like me. Maybe it's for other collectors, and the people that do own it, they really like it, and it does look good, and like it does look like a step up from the baby Rog, and it should be because it's 20 years later, right? Like it should be a step up. But I know I was just kind of disappointed because I wanted a different, like I thought, a Boromir classic series or a Sam or would be great. And then it was the Balrog, and it was like, okay, well, that's not the Balrog I want. So that's not even that piece's fault.
Yeah.
So that was a miss for me too. But Weta soon released the 2 mini helms. Not long after that, we had the Palace Guard mini helm, and then the Captain's mini helm. I'll just pull those up here. You guys might have forgotten. And I thought those were well done. Like most of the mini helms, they're well done. These ones are obviously not metal anymore. But not being a Hobbit collector, that I didn't give them too much attention. But for those who do collect the Hobbit, I thought it was a great addition to that line, because you had the other ones, and now you have a complete Mirkwood Elven helm kind of set.
I did pick these up.
Okay.
That was an instant buy for me. I didn't originally collect the mini helm line. Actually, they had long since stopped after the partnership with Sideshow ended. I think the line kind of terminated at that point. So when I that's around the time when I started to collect Weta stuff, and I stayed away from. I basically just concentrated on the statues. I stayed away from the helms. I stayed away from the busts. I just stayed away from the mini weapon collections, the couple of shields that they had released. So all of that ancillary lines that Sideshow Weta had begun, other than the 1/6 statues, was stuff I didn't get into. So much later, for some reason, I just got really interested in the mini helms. So I started to hunt them all down. And I pretty much succeeded, except for I didn't get a lot of the orc ones because I just wasn't a fan of the designs and didn't feel a need to have them in my collection. I did get a couple of the more recognizable ones from the movies, and of course I didn't get the Twilight Witch King's crown, because that's really rare and hard to find, and when one does pop up, it's insanely expensive. So don't have that one either. So when they went back, when they revived this line, by then I'd already gotten nearly all of the Lord of the Rings ones, and so it was an easy decision for me to just kind of jump in and start collecting as well. Yeah, it is disappointing in the choice of material that they've used. I get the metal. They just couldn't make them as cost effective. Like, times have changed since 20 years ago. And Daniel's explained enough times that, it just wouldn't be possible to make this line affordable for collectors, to go back to metal. Even though actually I think the Théoden crown that's coming out next year, I think they said that one's metal.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see a small return to that with a smaller piece like that. Because unfortunately, I think, and it's happened to me on a couple of occasions, is that these, being small and so delicate, they're very brittle. So it's very easy to break. I've had a breakage in my Cumald Easterling helm. And forget which, there was another one that a little piece snapped off, and so I had to glue it back. But anyways, I did get the original Mirkwood helm in this line. I do collect a fair bit of items from the Hobbit, so these were easy pickups for me. Yeah, their price is starting to climb a little bit, and but and they're starting to dip a little bit into like concept stuff that wasn't even seen in the movie.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we saw that actually already with the Gondorian helm that has the dark wings. I forget what type of citadel guard that was, but that just looks so cool. I had to have it because it pairs up so nicely with the one with the white wings.
Right.
But anyways, I do have these. I actually have not pulled them out of the box yet, which I know is bad, because if you do plan to return them to Weta, you have to inspect your stuff, I think, within 30 days of arrival. And I think I've already blown that. But just because I'm in the process of moving, I just didn't want to have more stuff out. So hope and pray they're okay. And if not, I'll just have to glue them or whatever. But generally, I've never had problems with the helms arriving in any bad shape. So yeah, I really like these and I highly recommend it.
So they were a hit for you. How about you, Ben?
I mean, I'm a fan of the quarter scale helms too.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get these yet, but I do plan on acquiring them. I mean, I agree almost fully with what Valkyrie said in relation to the metal as well. I mean, I fell in love with the quarter scale Sideshow Weta ones. I originally didn't collect them either. And then once I got one or two of them, I was like, man, these are great.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta have them all.
Yeah, you gotta have them all. So, I went on a mission to get them. And then, when they, obviously they'd already started to come with some newer ones that weren't metal. And I remember getting the first one and I was like, man, this is so weird. But the detailing, I think, is awesome on them, and they're definitely worth getting. It would be cooler, obviously, if they were still made of metal, but that's obviously not up for debate anymore.
Yeah.
But it will be cool to see the Théoden crown in metal. That will be an interesting piece, because they are so easily breakable, especially the Felby's bust helm.
Oh,
it's got that little piece in the front. I mean, I broke.
Yeah, the little.
Yeah, mine's been broken numerous times.
Right. Right. So yeah, I think we're pretty much all on the same page on these ones. Like they're a hit, and I don't plan on picking them up just because I don't collect Hobbit really, but I think they're pretty cool, and I'm glad those who do collect Hobbit have the opportunity for them. And speaking of Hobbit, Weta also released a mini Radagast, and I think it's pretty cool. Like I think he's going to pair up nicely with the Gandalf and the Saruman they released a couple of years ago. So now you can have the three Istari in miniature form. So for me, he was also a hit. and I really liked him. He's always been a bit of a goofy character for me, but I don't know what Saruman says, a foolish fellow or something like that. But I like this one too. It's another one I don't plan on grabbing, but I do think he's pretty cool, and I'm happy for the Hobbit. And maybe I will if it comes up on Black Friday, just to complete the story, setup. But what did you think of it, Ben?
I think it's great. I mean, I was a fan of the character, and I just love his staff really too. And I think it's so well done in this little depiction that it'll definitely be something I get, and I look forward to seeing it in real life.
How about you, Val?
I did not pick him up. I mean, I have the original 1/6, which I really like, but he's not easy to find anymore. So I think this is a great opportunity for people that missed out on that one to at least have him represented in their collection, even if it's a miniature.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, I'm sort of waiting maybe when there's a sale one day, or like a 3 for 2 kind of those bundle deals that they used to do, and miss those a lot. But if he does show up at a discount at some point, maybe I'll pick him up, because I do have the miniature Saruman. I've not ordered the Gandalf, but if I do, then you almost feel like you need this one to complete the set. I wasn't a fan of the character at first in the movie. I felt it was just too goofy, but after a couple of viewings, just a performance by Sylvester McCoy was just so amazing that it just kind of worms your way into your heart, and you kind of let go of that. It's not like he's features prominently in the books or even Tolkien lore and large, but I always took it to be like, he's one of the Astari. They're a little more serious than this goofball with bird poop all over himself. But
he reminds me.
I've warmed up a lot to him. I like the statue that I have in my collection, the 1/6, and so I think this must be, it's a must for me, I think, in the near future to get this one.
He always kind of reminded me of like a stray cat, maybe he's missing half his ear, or he's got a mangy fur coat, but he worms his way into your heart with his petals and furs. That's what Radagast kind of reminds me of. So sure. I think it's another hit as well for Weta, and I think he's going to do really well for them. And then to kind of cap off, this year was also the 10th anniversary of The Hobbit. We had Weta kind of did a big piece for that, and that was Smaug the Fire Drake, and that was a lot of fun, kind of speculating as that came out where he was going to be. A lot of people thought he was going to be in his death scene, right? On the thing. We weren't sure how he was going to be depicted, and people thought maybe Lake Town, but what they ended up going with, I think, looks really good. And if you don't have a Smaug in your collection, I think it's a must get for you. You really like The Hobbit for that character.
I remember all that speculation. It's because I think there was I don't know if it was a leaked photo or just one that just kind of popped up, as they often do with sort of the work in progress, and the way that you could see the pose. Obviously there was no view of the statue underneath or anything like that, and it looked for all the world like the moment when he gets shot by the black arrow and he's screaming out in pain, and I thought, and everybody went like, what, a dying Smaug? Not too many people are fans of the dying poses, so I think that was a bit of a pre-judgmental uproar over that. So I'm glad that that's not what it was. I think the statue looks just absolutely stunning. I mean, if I didn't already own the original Smaug the Magnificent, I 100% would have gone for this. I mean, the size is just daunting. And also it would make me make me a little nervous having that in my collection room, to be honest. I mean, pretty careful in there, and everybody that I allowed to come in that collection room knows the rules, and but I would just be nervous having that around. It just looks fragile. I'm a bit leery of the construction of how he's just attached to the statue beneath him by the tail, and how, I mean, I remember some of the problems that people were having or imagined that they were having, I think, with the ring right at the ford and how it leans, that statue leans so precariously. I think time is going to be it's going to tell a story one day about these statues, like 20 years down the road, how these are holding up and what gravity is doing to them. So I don't know, something about this pose and construction just concerns me, but all that aside, I think it's amazing. If I didn't have the magnificent, like I said, I would have picked this one up for sure.
And hopefully Weta's learned some lessons from the ring wraith at the ford, and how to prevent that kind of sagging and leaning, in future pieces. And
yeah,
it's crazy to think too how Daniel was saying that they were even going to go farther on this one with like LEDs in like his belly and like his mouth and like flaming trees, like just, and they had to scale it back. And I actually think like they could just release the dwarven statue on its own as an environment, because it's pretty cool too. Like I really like that piece on its own, Weta's not really in the habit of doing that, but it would be pretty cool if they did. Did you end up ordering, Ben?
Yes, I did order this.
Right on.
I'm excited for it. But I mean, I also see that there are some potential risks, in its frailty possibilities, because I mean, those wings look really skinny, and like you said, I mean, how does it actually connect? Obviously it is the tail, but how it actually does is going to be a whole nother thing. It'll be interesting to see how many pieces it actually is, like if the wings come off, or how this actually is going to ship, because this is going to be a pretty big box, if not 2 boxes. I don't know. But it's just wild how big these things are getting. Just everything is massive, and but I mean, this is a majestic piece. I love it. Obviously, Smaug's a great character, but the base, it just really draws me into this piece in particular.
Yeah,
I really.
It's like you're getting 2 in 1. You're getting an environment piece,
Right.
That's like 1/3 of the gates of Erebor right there, and you're getting the character of Smaug. So I think there's definite value for the money in this one.
Yeah, exactly. I just wish, there were so many different things that could have been done. I mean, really, Smaug wasn't even characterized in the first movie.
No, not really.
I wish they would have done something that was more in tune with the first movie, but I get it. I mean, The Hobbit is a hard sell, it seems, and they really only like to make Thranduil, Ariel, and the Smaug seem
They
to
don't
be
even like making Bilbo.
right. I mean, it seems like they got 3 characters that they feel safe will be good players.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to see him do something that hadn't been done, but I think this is an amazing piece nonetheless, and I was excited and ordered it. But
I think
I got this is just an ad too. This will be whatever 4th Smaug piece that
I think I would have liked to have seen Weta release like the Erebor guard to celebrate the 10th, because you only really see him in the in An Unexpected Journey. He would have been a cool piece, but he's an unnamed character and he gets very little screen time. But he has those Erebor guards. They got such cool armor. So Smaug kind of capped off Weta's nod to the Hobbit's 10th anniversary, and then they moved into Lord of the Rings after this, and we got the second classic series pieces here, Aragorn, and this I know it surprised me, and I really liked him. I thought he was some people didn't really like they called it the surfing pose, but to me that is very evocative of that scene where he's asking Legolas what his elf eyes see as they're running across the plains of Rohan, and I to me this is it's a cool piece, and the classic series just seems to keep getting better and better with this piece. But the Balrog was a miss, but Aragorn more than made up for it, I think.
Yeah, for me, I mean, when I saw it, I liked it right away. I mean, likeness is one thing that people jump on immediately, myself included, and I think that this one it's not 100% there. It's not as good as the Aragorn at Amon Hen, but it's a definite improvement over the old sideshow Weta Strider. I mean, the main disappointment for me, of course, was that, okay, here is yet another Fellowship character not in the moment that I want, which is when all 9 of them are together. But I mean, they've kind of already blown that in the classic series with Gandalf being represented as in the moment when he's in Minas Tirith. So that kind of hope is gone. I just need to let go of it. That the classic series won't be the one that addresses that. So my assumption here, maybe if they're following sort of along the lines of the Amon Hen line, is that when we do get Gimli and Legolas in the classic series, they may be from this moment, just so they could go with Aragorn, or maybe they'll just go with something else altogether. I mean, these statues aren't really meant to be connected in any way that I've seen or understood so far. So maybe they're just picking cool moments for each character, completely independent of each other. Overall, I really do like this statue. We've begun to get some in-hand photos, and I was a little put off by I think the facial expression on the actual production piece isn't quite blowing me away. It might just be the angle. First photos are never the greatest. It always seems like it takes a while, a good chunk of people putting up photos before we see that closer match to what these prototype photos are. And sometimes it doesn't ever happen. You just like, no, that just will never look like what we thought we were going to get. So my thoughts in getting it, probably one day. I'm disappointed that they keep missing little details like the silver on the Boromir's vambraces. The tree and the stars are supposed to be silver.
And like you can
commented
see
that they leave, it's, I guess they're trying to keep the price down. Every little addition, every little painting and whatnot adds, but it's like, really, was it just for the accuracy and the fealty to having this being as close as possible to what we see in the movies? It's always disappointing that these little details are either missed or purposely overlooked or whatever the reason. I find it disappointing. I understand this is sort of their budget line, but just a small, simple thing like that. It's just a personal disappointment sometimes. So I just want to get a little silver marker if I buy this statue and just fill that in myself, make it more accurate. But
the tree is supposed to be, and then even looking here, Eric Strider's sword has that silver. I'm not sure what the sword gurus who are listening are gonna butcher me, but it's got that kind of that middle piece in the middle of the hill, right? I'm looking up at my United Cutlery one right there, and you can see right here, it's not really painted. I'm not sure if the production ones have that or not, but those are two little issues, like you were mentioning, little details. And the details do add up on these pieces, right?
Oh yeah, and I think we initially talked about when I remember discussing when the statue was first previewed that I think he's missing his bedroll.
Yeah, and his
remember
knife,
talking about
think,
that?
maybe. Yeah, that was a big kind of discussion on the Flame of Voodoo in there. His knife was missing, I think, and his bedroll too. And I can't remember what his explanation was. I think I don't know if it was an artistic choice.
It's obviously something that they would have had to sculpt and paint, and it all would have added time and cost. Obviously, I think the knife. I think Daniel jokingly said that it's there. It's just under the cloak. And
Right.
yeah, in that case, you can just. Well, of course, it's you're not going to see every detail of the characters because just the way the dress and the cloaks do conceal a lot. So yeah, I can pretend and imagine that. Yeah, of course, the knife is there. It's just behind the cloak. The bedroll would have been on the outside, and it's. When you watch the movie and you look at that scene and then you compare it to this, it's like almost not quite. Anyways, I'll probably end up picking this up one day, but not for now. And one thing I wanted to mention is that I mean, with the open editions, for me, I just don't see the need to rush into a pre-order. It's a 25% deposit now. If you're one of the countries that pays taxes upon purchase, they nail you with those as well. I just don't see the point in tying up those kind of funds for a year waiting for one of these. So it's a wait on this one.
Yeah. How about you, Ben? Did you order?
I didn't order it, but I will get it.
Right.
I with the open edition, I just kind of wait until it finds its way to me somehow.
Right.
Either through
all roads lead to the museum on Boundary Lane, eh?
Exactly. So I kind of just wait it out, and but I do plan on picking it up. I really like how they do these classic series with these bases where they add this additional rock, and I think they're very it adds something else to the piece that when they were just the old when they were just the plain Middle Earth map bases. I think that adding just a little bit of rock adds so much to the piece.
Yeah, because it tells you the moment that piece is maybe set in.
Yeah,
but it's not over the top. It's very tasteful.
Right, exactly. It's not a huge piece, but it's enough to like you said, like draw you into when that specific moment was in the movie. And but yeah, it is interesting, and I'm looking at these pictures on Weta's page here, and you don't see any picture of their pre-production photos here of it directly head on, with the face. And when you've seen a few of those, like Valkyries was saying on, of in hand, when they take the direct shot of his face, kind of looks a little odd. So they don't show that on here.
Yeah,
maybe they realize
there's something with Vigo's.
Yeah, him and Elijah Wood are really difficult to capture.
But I don't think the Am and Hen one. Like you said, I don't think it was bested or even came close to with this one. The Am and Hen one is amazing. And there's only 400 of them. And
for you guys watching, I think Ryan the Cyber Hobbit, he just did a review on the classic series Aragorn, and we'll put a link here if you want to go watch.
Yeah, he said it was like the best piece he has. Right?
He really liked it. Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, just looking at it, it's extremely detailed, and the classic series do look very good. And especially when you compare them to stuff from when they came out 20 years ago. Yeah. I mean, it's mind-blowing looking at this depiction of Strider compared to the one that used to sell for $500. Used. Yeah. So I think for me it was a hit, but at the same time, and we'll talk about this later in our episode, to me it was another Aragorn in his fellowship garb. His when we have the sideshow one, we have the Aman Hen one, we have the sideshow Weta version, so he's well represented in his ranger gear, right? And so this year being Two Towers, I was a little disappointed to see another Aragorn in his fellowship kind of gear, ranger gear. So while it was a hit for me, it did leave me wanting more. So
So as well as that, what a kind of, they've started to, I don't know, hear our pleas for prop replicas, and they also brought out the key for Bag End. And I thought that was a cool, and I like how I think it was a metal, you know, we don't see it in the film, but it was kind of a cool little prop replica, and one that would look great with the new Bag End, or if you have the old Bag End, or if you just like Bag End, you have this cool little the key to Bag End. I didn't order it, but I do plan on picking it up down the road. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
I really like it. I'm very much into these 1-to-1 scale replicas of the movie props, even though this, like you said, isn't one that was seen. I think there's actually a few concept drawings kicking around, and there are different versions of this key, or at least 2 different ones. So that they chose to reproduce this particular one, I don't know what that says, if that actually got made as a prop and we just never happened to see it in the movie. But regardless, I mean, I've collected the other keys that they've released so far. I think there's only been 2, the Mirkwood jail key and the key to the secret door of Erebor.
Yeah.
So I got both of those. So yeah, I need a key ring one of these days. I'm just gonna walk around the house jangling with the keys, like the warden doing the rounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, just haven't had the opportunity to pick it up yet, but it's definitely on the list. I love these little things, and I think they're quite affordable. And the fact that they're just made of like real world materials like metal is a definite plus.
Yeah, definitely. So after the Bag End key, Weta also this was a San Diego Comic-Con release, was that mini kind of Smaug, or not Smaug, Gollum and Smeagol. And I thought that was pretty cool. What did you guys think of that here? Find them here.
Here he is.
Yeah, there he is.
I mean, I thought this was
a cool concept.
It was a cool concept. I think it's overpriced for the size. Like when I saw, I don't know if there's a photo of one in hand, or like there's yeah, there it is. I mean, that's about the size of the minis that have come out in the past, going back all the way to the one that came with the special edition DVDs from way back in the day. So, and I think you have to refresh my memory there, but isn't one of them like limited edition and the other one?
Yeah. So one of them was I don't remember which one, but one of them was limited and the other one was open.
Yeah. So
what it was kind of stinkers about that, they
yeah, stinkers and slinkers.
I don't know if it was it was a sales tactic, I guess, because as we've talked about already tonight, just not feeling the urgency to jump on open editions, and by making half of this limited edition, you really, if you were on the fence about it, that would have put you over the fence on whether you got it or not.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much guarantees the exact number of sales of the opposing piece, which is open.
Right.
But I mean, for me, the value just isn't there. It's way too small. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm sick and tired of Gollum. I mean, I'm sure he's a great seller. He's an integral, pivotal part of the story. I completely get it. But I just kind of feel like he's been overdone. There's so many different representations of him. I have 2 in my collection. I'm happy with them. I just don't feel the need to rush out and spend, especially this kind of money for not just 1, but 2 more of the little guy. So dare we ask Ben? He's got one that's the size of the real thing in his collection. So how do you feel about the tiny ones?
I think this is a cool concept for sure. I think you
Mhm.
know, to depict the character, essentially in the same, you know, uh, from the same exact period of the movie with both his
Yeah.
renderings, I think is a great idea. Um, but like you said, I mean, essentially this was done by Sideshow Weta stuff.
Mhm.
The I think it was with the Two Towers um, DVD
Yeah.
gift set. You got the Smeagol, which was open, and then
Yeah.
the Gollum was one of 4,000.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, obviously they weren't exactly like this, but very similar.
Yeah.
And like Chris was saying, I think he's got to be one of the most represented characters. Him and Gandalf
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
from the total trilogy. I don't know. There's probably 9 or 10 of them now. But I hope to get it at some point. I didn't order it, but like I said, I think it is a great concept, and I hope they continue to do interesting things like this.
Mhm.
And like I said too, I really, when they add characteristics of the environment to the base, it adds a lot to the piece in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like this scene in particular, like exactly what point in the movie
Yes.
this is depicting, and it is Valkyrus hates when people throw the term iconic around, but it is one of the more iconic, recognizable
Mm,
scenes with Gollum and Smeagol, where he's
Yeah.
arguing with himself,
Yeah.
and you see the reflection in the water, and yeah, it's a good point of that you mentioned. I was just thinking about that too. The sideshow versions of that came with the extended edition Two Towers, and then you had the limited edition version you could get of Gollum, and I just don't know if this is enough to knock that off its perch for long-term collectors who have both of those. And I don't, for the price, it's hard to see a lot of long-term collectors picking this up. I might pick it up just because I don't have either of those old ones, and I do like the concept. And yeah, there are a lot of I agree, Val. There are a lot of Golems. You could just collect Golem and have a decent sized collection.
you could.
I have the master collection one, and I'm happy with just that version of Golem in my collection. But
You're
this
gonna
was,
own Gollum. That's definitely the one to have, I think.
yeah, I think so too. This was definitely though like the appetizer for San Diego Comic-Con, because I think it was later that day we got Elendil, and my God, is he beautiful.
Mhm.
I have since collecting, I'm not a seasoned collector, but I have wanted an Elendil forever, even before I collected, and then as I collected, I wanted Elendil, and it was so awesome to see Weta bring Elendil to see. It's funny. He's a Fellowship of the Ring character, and I think he stole the show for the Two Towers anniversary. For me at least, he did. There isn't, thing really I'd change about him, and I think he was just. If the other ones on that we've mentioned were hits, he was a slam dunk. So I know you're a big prologue fan, Valkyrus. What were, what?
I mean, if you guys watched our first episode, I've already gone on at length about
Yeah,
Elendil and what the character and its representation it means to me as a fan of the books, like extending beyond the Lord of the Rings and into the lore and history of Middle Earth, going back a good 40 years of my life. I've had my head buried in this Tolkien stuff. So yeah, for me, I mean, I could have watched the entire Lord of the 3.5 hour length of the movie Lord of the Rings. That could have been just a prologue for me of the build up to the Last Alliance and the war itself. And I would have been happy, and then deal with the actual Lord of the Rings in 3 more subsequent movies. But anyways, I think it's great that they finally, after 20 long years, have given this character its due, despite his extremely short screen time. I'm super stoked that Gil-galad will be coming soon to join him and facing off against Sauron. And yeah, to me, what is it, about $100 premium over a similar statue of this caliber that's Weta currently putting out, kind of thing. I mean, he's a little more intricate and detailed, say, than your classic series piece. But for me, it was an easy decision. I didn't fuss more than half a second over the additional cost. It's something that I'd been hoping they would do for so long that I wasn't about to get hung up on that. So easy pre-order. It looks amazing. I can't wait to have them. How about you, Ben? You look very pensive.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking at it on my computer. Yeah, it's a home run for sure. I think that a lot of people had been waiting for something to come out. And, from the final battle. But with the Sauron, they finally had a chance, I guess, to do it in a way that they thought was financially responsible, I guess.
Right.
They didn't just kind of shoot into the dark and say, hey, here's a character that has, like you said, minimal screen time. We'll see how it does. But I think with the coupling with Sauron, they felt comfortable that they could sell it.
Yeah.
And luckily it was successful. So hopefully, this will give them more leeway down the road to do more of these characters that aren't but they're important to the people, like you said, it's very important to you and to fans of Tolkien in general. And it's cool to get characters like this. But I mean, just looking at the statue, they really did a good job. I mean, if it looks anything like this, I think it might be the best piece from this whole list.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it'll be exciting to get it. I'm looking forward to it for sure too.
Yeah. He's going to be hard to knock off the top rung there with what we have left. And I mean, after that, Weta released the master collections for this year, and it was a pretty interesting piece, a very, I don't want to say polarizing, but dynamic, different. It seemed, I don't want to say like either you loved it or you hated it, but for some people they really liked it. Some people it just didn't do it for them, or they found the concept odd. It definitely seemed like a case of Weta pushing the envelope on what they can do, and when we kind of, on the Flame of Adun, we were really guessing in what the Two Towers Master Collection statue could be, because there's a lot of great moments in the Two Towers, but they don't always necessarily translate to a Master Collection statue. And then there's some great moments, but it's like, well, I'd rather see that for the Return of the King. Like people talked about a Théoden, a mounted Théoden, like charging out of Helm's Deep or something. It's like, well, yeah, that'd be great, but I'd much rather have Théoden at Pelennor Fields. And the chances of getting two Théodens back to back, are slim to none, right? So if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to pick the greatest moment in cinema history, which is his speech before the charge of the Rohirrim. So the Two Towers, it just seemed like there was a lot of just kind of, that was the case with the Two Tower. It's the middle child, the middle movie, and so when it became more apparent that the Master Collection was going to be the dead mark, like that just seemed like something Weta to do. They still managed to surprise us. Now I don't generally pick up the Master Collections. They're a bit above my price range and what I'm wanting to spend on collectibles, but it was a cool piece and I did like it. I do think it's cool. And will I pick it up down the road? I don't know. We'll see. But I do think it was a hit, although I might be in the minority by that. I don't know. What did you guys think about it? I know I could see Valkyries is kind of chomping at the bit to give his opinion on it. So
Well, I think we may have spoken about this one before. It's sort of ringing a bell a little bit, other than what we normally discuss on the forum. I think one of the episodes maybe we touched on this. It's, in terms of the masterpiece collection, I mean, the only one I have is Treebeard. And for me, like I think I've mentioned before, I'm more about the representation of a character rather than necessarily a moment, capturing a specific moment in the movie, which is 100% what this is. So love Frodo, love Sam, tired of Gollum, but I get it. He needs to be there. He belongs in the scene. But when it was, forget exactly how it came about, the news that the masterpiece would be the representation of the dead marshes. I thought, he goes, that's cool. I mean, it's a part I enjoy in the books. I like the way that they did it in the movie. And but my mind just immediately formed a picture, a vision of how that would be captured in statue form, and this was not it. So not that I was thinking that, oh, if they do that exactly, I'm gonna get it for sure. And then they came out with this, and I thought, no. I don't know, hard to say, but to me, the concept of like the way that it's done, this very vertical, almost like, I almost equate it to those, I forget the term, but when you have an ant colony inside the glass and you can see all the different little the ants.
right.
It's just done in a way that thematically and how it's represented, it just doesn't fit with what I want in my collection. It's nothing to do with the characters themselves and their depiction, but just the way the entire thing is as a whole. I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't fit with what I want to see in my collection. And because also it's just not how I envisioned it. I was thinking it would be something a lot more horizontal in terms of having the three of them by the shore, essentially like the top third of this piece, but then more horizontal, and then there'd be a couple of inches of depth, and you would just see one of the dead elven soldiers through the water.
Right.
Like when they first see it, just in the moment where it opens its eyes, and then the whole horrific scene begins. This is obviously a few moments later, and they really went crazy on showing it all. I mean, as a piece of art, I think it looks amazing. The way they incorporated the lights and the flowing water and the bubbles coming out of his sleeves, the whole thing is just, it's fantastic. Like, yeah, there's that part of me that can definitely appreciate the work and the concept design that went into this. But it 100% isn't for me. I'm almost glad so far that other than Treebeard, all the masterpiece collections have not been my thing, because I would be broke by now if I was collecting them all. But as we know that they've said that these are meant to be capturing the ring bearer's journey throughout the three movies. I think in that light, it does make sense that they kind of picked this one. I mean, when you look at that movie, other than maybe them in Osgiliath, I can't quite see what other moment they could have picked. I just wish this one, for me, in order to push me over the edge into thinking about buying it, it would have had to been represented differently in a way that would fit more with how I want my collection to look. So there you have it.
How about you, Ben? Did you order it?
I tried to order it, and then I had credit card issues and some things happened, and
all right.
I plan on getting it at some point, but it was during the website issues that occurred.
Fiasco. Yeah.
I find it, it's so different
Mhm.
any other master collection or any other piece really that they've ever done.
Right.
That but I respect it. I think it's a wild it's it's a push to see what they can do.
Mhm.
Just amazing when you look at it, like all the intricacies of detailing and things going on in it. I mean, I bet you could spend a lot of time. I'd love to see a picture of it from above looking down.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
'Cause when you look at the there's no real depiction of that. You
No.
got the side kind of, but I'd like to see, what it would look like directly from above. But um, I know that they've stated that, with the 20th anniversary, they're making these master collections, kind of stick with the ring bearer, but I would have really liked to see like the return of Gandalf or something like that,
Mhm.
where uh, Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn or something,
Yeah.
and Gandalf the White on like a hill, and I don't know. I that's kind of what I always thought would be something that could potentially be done, but obviously if they're sticking with these guys or with Frodo and Sam, essentially, the dead marshes was kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like this was just never something that I would have even thought possible,
Right.
or something that they would even try, because it's so different than anything they've ever done.
It is.
And it's going to be an interest. You're going to have an interesting time finding a way to display this in a collection.
Yeah.
This one would
Yeah.
definitely benefit from a turntable for sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. It's gonna be interesting to see how many of them don't get damaged, because there are so many little pieces,
Yeah.
little things like the race hair there and tree roots and everything that could snap off so easily, I think. Perhaps that Weta's lend, and that'll be a more flexible material. I don't know, but it does look like
It reminds me a bit of the like with all the motion and the little tendrils and obviously the coloration. It's very evocative of the Dark Galadriel.
mm,
I never did pick that one up, but weren't there some issues with breakage on that one? You guys
Well,
have that one?
the Dark Galadriel's it's made of some different material
yeah.
that's much more flexible than the normal polystone. So that's probably what we used here. I'm just assuming it based on that,
Uh-huh.
because mine didn't have any problems. Well, actually it did, but it wasn't with the material breaking. It was her hair on her head was kind of like bent strangely,
Huh.
and I messaged the Weta and they sent me a new head right away. But
Hmm.
I think that was just that was like it just sat strangely and it kind of just bent weird. But those it's amazing how many pieces are on that Dark Galadriel.
Right.
Whatever material you use, it feels very sturdy. And I mean, I think even if you dropped one of the pieces, it wouldn't break. So, but I don't know this. If you dropped this, you would not be having a good day. That's for sure.
No. So, Valkis, do you think potentially that did you go into it with kind of a preconceived notion of what you thought it was going to look? Do you think that impacted how much you liked this, or no? Like, do you think that affected your opinion on it?
I want to say yes and no. I mean, it definitely did. I think my mind was too set on what it should look like, and then when it wasn't, I was almost a little PO'd about it. Kind of like, really? Like you had an opportunity to do it, but it's like they're not mind readers, and you can ask 100 different people how they thought this would be depicted, and you can get 100 different answers. So it's not. It just wasn't what I was expecting.
Right.
So yeah, it caught me off guard. I think that they
Mhm.
went with something this wild and extreme. But beyond that, I also just kind of made up my mind that that doesn't really fit, like I said, the concept of my collection.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, it had an impact.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
think.
it's
Yeah.
you try to not get preconceived ideas of what something's gonna like. With me, Elendil, I had an idea of what I hoped he would look like. And the pose they did was pretty much that idea, and that's I think partly because the only images on the internet of Elendil is basically in that pose.
Yeah, that pose, yeah.
And so
Gonna get etched into your brain, and that's what you expect. And when they do
Yeah.
deliver, it's like, oh man, that's an easy decision right there.
Yeah.
Um,
With this one, I don't know if it's an Alan Lee painting or what, but there's here I am using the word iconic again, but that kind of silhouette picture of Frodo and Sam and Gollum kind of picking their way through the marshes. And I think that's what I was expecting with this, was something more of a long kind of oval base with that kind of bringing that silhouette to life. And so, and while I think I would have preferred that, I still think this is pretty cool, but Ben, you mentioned kind of the return of Gandalf and that moment where, anybody who didn't read the books at that time, who witnessed that scene, your mouth was, your jaw was on the floor. You're like, oh my God, it's Gandalf. He's returned. All right. And I do think like this scene from the pose that the Gandalf the White Classic series is in, I do think it is from that moment.
Yeah.
And so they kind of did that, and so it's cool to see that moment is brought to life in Polystone, just not the rest of that moment, but we do have the main character of that scene, and I do think it is a pretty cool one.
Mm-hmm.
Were you happy what's that?
Sorry, I'm just going to interject there on the presumption of where this moment happens. Like, I actually want to go to the movie and look at what he's standing on.
I was just thinking
because, as we know, in that scene in the movie, they're obviously in Fangorn, and I think Gandalf is standing on something.
I think it's a log
higher up.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing there it's not quite matching. Okay. I'll get straight to the point. There's another scene later on where Gandalf is in this similar pose, holding that staff, and he has that look on his face. And I believe happens when he is at Theodred's grave.
Okay.
When Théoden is crying, and sort of he has that moment where he's reflecting on the time of his life that's spent, and how things have come to this, and that he's the last of his house and all of that. Gandalf is standing there with him, and he speaks a few words, I believe, in Rohirric.
Right.
And
it could be
that look on his face in that moment, and just the pose, it so reminds me of that. I almost wonder, is it from there, or are we just assuming that it's definitely from Fangorn?
So I thought, there is a lack of grass on the base. I thought Daniel said on the forum it was from Fangorn, but the pose, you know what else the pose reminds me of, is when Gandalf is standing in front of Denethor in Return of the King. And he's asking him, where are Gondor's armies? That looks very similar in pose, and
almost picture Pippin at his side.
Yeah, and like, if we do
but that's definitely not the floor of
the
White Tower.
The janitors are going to get in trouble if that's what's the shape of the
all this crap that Gandalf tracked in.
No wonder Denethor was pissed.
Yeah.
But if Weta releases Denethor next year, you could potentially pair this with that Denethor. If you get creative with your base or something, that would be. And maybe that's why Weta went with this pose for the classic series Gandalf, because it works so well in so many moments.
Definitely versatile.
Yeah. Were you so Ben, were you happy with when you saw, like, I know because you were wanting that scene in a master collection. Were you happy when you saw this? Did that kind of make up for that a bit?
I love it. I think this is great.
Yeah.
Gandalf the White seems to not have many. There hasn't been a lot of pieces done of him compared to Gandalf the Grey, and I think this is a great pose. The old sideshow Weta one with him holding the staff above his head and his mouth was kind of open, and I don't know. I think this is much more classic. Like
It's a bit more stoic.
Exactly, and I think it's more in line with the classic series, and I'm a big fan of it. I'm definitely getting this.
Yeah, I definitely plan on grabbing them as well.
And
yeah, it's like you said, like sorry, when you think of the very term, the classic series, a classic pose of a statue, this is exactly what my mind jumps to.
Yeah.
Not so much like what we just saw with Aragorn, where it's more of that movie specific moment. Whereas this one is a little, we can say this is the moment when he reveals himself in Fangorn, but as we just discussed, we could apply it to a number of situations. Is just such a natural, easy pose. It's almost like you could walk into like a medieval city and have just that one bronze statue in the middle of the town square, and that depicts that one hero of history. And this is the pose,
right? Just
like with Elendil with the sword, or we always picture the guy on the horse with the sword. If you've been to Europe, these are all over the place. But to me, this is the classic series piece. And I do have the one that Ben just mentioned, the original sideshow one, not the one on the horse, but the one on the ground.
Yeah,
I like it, but mainly because it was really the only one that was available, unless of course you had the one with Shadowfax. But I think this one's vastly superior.
Yeah,
the detailing is just incredible.
and I was just going to mention, like on the newer ones, like you can see the texture in the fabric. Like. And with the statues from, as good as some of the sideshow Weta statues are, they don't have that same level of detail, that same texture that makes you think that's fabric. And I think the ultimate goal of a sculptor when they're sculpting fabric is to make you think that's fabric, right? And this certainly accomplishes that goal.
Yeah.
And it's fun. We were talking about kind of scenes and how Weta seems to be doing more, like you prefer the character, right, Valkris? You don't necessarily need that scene from a movie. But it is interesting. Weta now has 20 years hindsight of, well, these moments are beloved by fans and so we as fans maybe want those scenes in polystone in a collectible form, whereas 20 years ago they maybe didn't know what scenes were going to be like. Who knew that, like, Sam's potatoes or second breakfast, those scenes would become just beloved by fans. And there's some moments, Théoden's speech for Frodo when Aragorn charges a Black Gate, when Gandalf revealed, those scenes have just become beloved by fans. And then Weta now has 20 years hindsight to say, fans really love that moment. Let's give them that moment in collectible form.
There's that for sure. I mean, for me, it's this that when you take the movies in their entirety, almost all 10 hours plus of, most of the characters will be universally loved. Unless it's like a Denethor, which tends to be polarizing. So there are obviously exceptions to the rule, but if you like Gandalf, you like Gandalf. Right. But there may be a scene or two maybe where that's just not your favorite scene of the character. I don't know if I'm so if that's the one that Weta picks, it might impact your enjoyment somehow, because he goes, that wasn't really my favorite bit in the movie, but there are others where I like this character more. So for me, it works better when the character is a little in more of a generic situation, rather than nailing it down to that one specific moment in the movie, because it may just not particularly speak to me. Like, for example, Gandalf on cart. master collection piece. When that one came out, I mean, a lot of people were going gaga over it, like, oh man, this is Fellowship of the Ring to me. This is this is the one scene that you could just instantly be transported to Middle Earth. This is Tolkien. And 100%. I mean, that is 100% subjective,
Right.
to what those folks are saying. I'm not detracting from that in any way, because I have my own set of moments or pieces that I can look at and say that's what evokes that feeling for me. But that one wasn't it. So it's like, I don't think you can take any one piece or statue that's just going to work 100% for everyone that looks at it. And like when I saw Gandalf on card, I'm like, it's neat, but it was a nice moment in the movie, but it wasn't, it's not making me like go, oh my God, I have to get this statue because it's all that in the bag of chips. To me, it was just like, it's great, but not for me. And it's not the same with Escape Off the Road. I mean, I love that moment in the movie. I do have stronger feelings about it than I do Gandalf on card, but again, it was just so specific that I don't know how to explain this better.
That's fair. No, I think yeah, kind of it's a fair point. So that was basically it for San Diego Comic-Con this year, from what I remember. We had a bit of a break, and then towards the end of the year, Weta kind of released a number of stuff for the last few months. We got the mini crown of Théoden, which I think is cool. It's going to look great if you have a Rohan collection. It's going to look really cool, even paired next to the mini Aragorn crown, or just all on its own by like the Golden Hall. Like I think Gandalf the White was a hit. I think we can all agree on that, and this is also a hit. I think it being made of metal, I think really is a big bonus, and I think it's pretty cool. It does make me kind of feel like, well, actually, we'll get to this on the next one, but what did you guys think of it? Did any of you guys order it?
I did. Again, it was not only do I like the crown in and of itself, I also, like I mentioned previously, I'm collecting the 1/4 scale sling helm, so let's call it the headgear collection. I know a lot of people have been asking for them to expand the line into kind of like the circlets and headdresses and tiaras. I don't know how doable that is for Weta at this scale, because some of those, like especially Galadriel and Elrond, and they're so delicate. It would be super neat to see them, and it'd be interesting to see if they go in that direction, because they kind of are running out of pieces to reproduce in this line. But for me, I was a slam dunk. I love these things. The fact that it's metal is a huge bonus. I love the little medallion that they added, which is Théoden's brooch.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this was an easy one for me to pre-order. I didn't want to wait around and wait for it to sell out. So it's a coming.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm all in on it. I think it's great, for all the reasons that you guys have stated. I mean, the medallion's cool and metal, and I mean, any one of these that comes that's metal, I'm gonna probably get them all anyways, but
right,
if they're metal, it definitely draws you in a little more. I just like the weight of them and the feel, and it'll be interesting to see how, comparing the detail of this against some of the new modern.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just to see how the light, just how they interact next to each other, because it's one thing to compare the old ones to the new, but this will be direct comparison of what they're able to do.
And with it being metal, if you had big enough fingers, you could almost wear that as a ring. So I think, I think we could all agree this one was a hit, but I think the next one, they released this at the same time. For me, this was a miss, it's a concept helmet. It never saw screen time. The concept helmet of Arwen at Helm's Deep, which I can already see is making Valkyries like foam at the mouth. Uh, like
Yeah. Throwing me under the bus here, but you're right.
I am right. Like the idea of Arwen at Helm's Deep was, I think it would have ticked off a lot of people, and it did, from what I'm told. When that kind of rumor got out on the internet, and they ended up modifying Arwen's storyline, and we don't see her there. And as a result, we never saw this helmet see the light of day, right? To me, it's just odd looking. It I don't know. To me, it's a miss. Like it's not something I need in my collection because it's never in the film. It's never, and then like it's one thing to not have a piece that's not in the film, but it feels like it's straight out of the book. This one to me just felt odd. Like I don't really have a desire to get it. I don't know if you're a completionist, you might feel different. So I'm curious to see what you guys. I already know Val hates it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was part of that very early group that when we heard the rumor of the inclusion of this scene in the movies, was not pleased at all. I thought that was kind of a sign of things to come. I'm like, oh man, if they're going down that road, then I wonder what other kind of egregious changes are they gonna add to the movies. And thankfully, I think one of the very early instances of fan pressure or making their feelings known actually having an impact on a director altering the movie as a response. Anyway, actually, I'm of two minds on this in a way, because like you said, it's part of a scene that just the thought of it makes me queasy in terms of how it just doesn't fit into the lore in any way. So for that association, it was a complete miss for me. But on the other hand, I can always appreciate the amount of work and design and attention to detail that went into these things to create this stuff out of scratch.
That's fair.
Regardless of the character that it was meant for. I think it has its own beauty, for sure. Like it actually reminds me a little bit of Mary's helm in a way. And there's a part of me that can see it in the light of, there were probably dozens and dozens of different helm styles worn by the folk, the warriors of Rohan. So this would have just easily have been one of them. I mean, Arwen definitely wasn't Rohirrim, so if she showed up in that alternate universe and had to outfit herself and she grabbed this helm off the armory rack and put it on, you can accept that this helm does exist within the universe of the movies that we saw. It's just one that was never worn by a character. So if you're just looking for a complete representation of a culture in your collection, I think this is actually a great piece. I think it's lovely. It's well designed. It fits with those motifs. I like the addition of the green, probably as a little nod to the elven character that would have worn it, but also the green also fits in well with the Rohirrim. So I like it actually visually. I find it pleasing. I think it's cool to have a glimpse of these other helms that the warriors of Rohan would have worn. But yeah, the association with Arwen, and that's nothing against Arwen at all, 100%. I just didn't like that they were going in that direction with the character and needlessly adding her to scenes where she shouldn't been. So it was a miss for me, but I think
that's fair.
I do like it on some other.
You made some really good points actually that I had considered. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those things he said. I mean, I think it's great that they're, willing to push and, release some of the things that you know, just look at like what Valkris was saying. I mean, the detail that was
Mhm.
put into this piece, you know, for something that was never, you know, I mean, obviously they filmed it, but they never showed it.
Mhm.
But I mean, it just shows you how deep and how wonderful the artists and the work that they did was for these movies.
Yeah.
And you know, it's great that we finally are able to see something like this.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously it doesn't belong in, you know, in the lore to be worn and to be in this, you know, to be at Helm's Deep, but I think it's cool that they're willing to share it now.
Yeah.
I hope that,
Yep.
you know, maybe this, if this is somewhat successful, it, you know, opens the door to some other things that maybe weren't even used
Right.
at
Well, and
all. That
to
they,
me,
yeah,
it also kind of, is it Weta scraping the bottom of the barrel for the quarter scale helmet line? You know, are they running? You know, like trying to think of
Yeah. Yeah.
what haven't they done, and I'm not sure if there is much.
I think
You know,
there's very little. Yeah, unless they really do explore like the tiaras and
or like,
headdresses like I was talking about. I don't think
yeah,
there's very much. I mean, I joked on the forum that like what's next, they're gonna do Lobelia Sackville Baggins's big
bonnet.
tall
Oh,
hat
yeah, yeah.
she wears, and like where are they going with this? But
Well, and
like I said,
like,
it's kind of neat to have this. Like if you want
yeah,
a helm that, you know, a no-name Rohirrim warrior could have worn, that's like, why not? You don't have to tell, you know, like your average person that comes into your collection and you're showing it off and they glance at stuff on the
right.
shelf, they're not going to know that this was a concept that was never used or who it was belong, unless you actually talk about the history of it.
Mhm.
Somebody might just look at it and say, that's a neat looking helm. And it's right there with the rest of your Rohirrim helms. So from that perspective, I think it's great. But for me, knowing what it is associated with, it would bug me. So I would, yeah, I didn't buy it, won't buy it. Doesn't
So
belong.
it was a miss for you. It's a miss for me. What about you, Ben?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I will probably get it just because of my desire for
Right.
complete collections, but I don't know. I think I hope, like I said, I hope it opens the door for some other interesting things. Not maybe not even necessarily just helmets, but other things that they did that.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking, so we have the Witch King in Twilight, you know, his crown, right? Like
Yeah.
the sideshow one, the very rare, you had to buy the medallions. You have that one in your collection. But some of the other Nazgul, they also had crowns, right? They're a bit funkier looking. Uh
Yeah.
Perhaps that's something Weta looks into, is those alternative Nazgul crowns in Twilight form. You know, that would be kind of cool.
Mhm.
So one of the bigger pieces Weta released this year also was Leaf-lock, and I don't think anyone saw this coming. We've talked a bit about it on the channel here, so we'll probably be a bit briefer. You know, I've shared my thoughts on it, and so has Val. For me, it was a miss. It's just not for the price and what you're getting. You know, to me, it's just the wrong Ent. You know, if you like Ents and you want an Ent in your collection, then yeah, he's great. But if you wanted Treebeard in your collection, and you know, I'm the only one in this discussion that doesn't have Treebeard.
Yeah.
He, you know, he's not Treebeard. He's great, but his only problem is he's not Treebeard. You know, he's and for the price, you know, he's pretty expensive for something you wished was something else. If you're me, you know, other people, they would have been, oh great, yeah, I'm just happy to have Leaf-lock or an Ant in my collection. But for me, it was a miss. You know, it was not something I was really interested in. And I mean, I'm a little biased. I do find the ends kind of boring. So you know, they're not necessarily my cup of tea for um what the price was.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I mean, and I think the low edition size kind of speaks to the limited appeal that the piece had. I mean, I'm looking at the dates up there, and it was like he was on pre-order for almost a month.
yeah,
And that's all that they managed to kind of scrape pop. It's like, yeah, he's always going to be playing second fiddle to Treebeard. But on the other hand, we got to understand that it's like not every statue out there has to be for everyone, for every collector.
That's fair.
And I know I sound like a broken record, but were money and space never an object to me in collecting, I would have picked this up easily, because to me it's just I like the ends. It'd be, if they're going down the road of creating more of them and releasing them, then this could be the start of a pretty awesome collection of just the ends, like an attack on Isengard. Can you imagine how massive that would be with the 3 or 4 other ones that we see in more detail represented? But yeah, it's just that's a serious commitment to get into going down that rabbit hole.
Right.
And just when taken individually, like it wasn't for me. I think he looks amazing. It's he's definitely eye-catching. It's just the way he's portrayed. And with the orcs and everything, it's really neat, but just definitely not for me, not for the price.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like I said, not everything is for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think this was one of those rare misses for Weta in my book. It feels more like a passion project. I think it was mentioned that this was one of the.
It was definitely Daniel's baby.
Yeah. And power to them. If these guys have been at this long enough that they're in a position to go up to Richard Taylor and say, hey, I know this is a bit of a long shot and it's my passion project, but what do you think? Let me just try it. Like, why not? How many Gandalfs and Gollums do we have? Can we have one Leaf-lock, please? Sure, somebody will buy them. Hey, 347 people said yes. So power to you.
I'm curious on your thoughts on it, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting piece, but I think like what you said on, no one saw it coming. And I think that kind of hurts Weta with a piece like this. They don't really, let people have any knowledge of what they're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at like, who were they trying to catch with this? Were they trying to catch the guy that missed Treebeard that wants an ant, like what Valkris was saying, or are they trying to make more of the ants so that you can have just one wild tabletop display of
rampaging
Isengard? I mean, if that's what their intention is, it would be interesting if that was told to people so they could prepare. Because I mean, if you look at most people that have Treebeard, the way that they display him is by himself, in most cases in some intricate display case that is only big enough for him. And it blew my mind. I never in a million years, I never would have thought they would have come with this.
Right.
So when they did, it just kind of was interesting. I mean, I think it's great that they're doing these things. Like I said, I appreciate when they're pushing the limits and releasing characters that are in the movie for not a long time, or even they're not even well known. Because what other company is going to do this? No one. Weta's the only company that's going to do a Leaf-lock.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them doing these things. I just wish, if I think, probably would have sold more if people would have known in advance. I think it would have had a better chance, but I don't know what they're. I don't know why so closed lips. Some of these other companies give you like the silhouettes at least, or something to that effect,
right?
Without giving away any of the detail, but at least you can prepare in some respects in how you're going to display these things, because they are so big and they require a lot of effort and financials. You gotta, some of these pieces, you got to get the finances in order to prepare yourself for these things. So.
Well, he was about, I think, $1,700, and I think a lot more people would have ordered had Weta been able to say, we're going to create a couple more ants to go with him, but they didn't come out and say that. And maybe they will, maybe they won't, but
possibly.
If you knew that they were going to create more ants, I think a lot more people would have ordered him, because well, then you're out in the big end collection, right? And that's the last thing you want when you're collecting. That'd be like having 8 members of the fellowship, right? You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough position for them because it's a catch-22. If they come out and say it like, this is the first of,
Right.
excluding Treebeard, this is the first of a line of smaller, more affordable ends that we'll be putting out. They're
Mhm.
kind of committing to that. And then if it turns around that not enough people are into it and the sales are low and you get low edition sizes like this, they've painted themselves into a corner. And then you could be having the same situation like happen with the Dol Guldur 130 diorama, where they came out with this elaborate display. I mean, they did put out all the scenery pieces, but there were a whole bunch of characters that never saw the light of day in production because the sales just weren't there to justify completing it. And that left a lot of people, not happy, to put it mildly. And to this day, some of them are still waiting for Weta to kind of fulfill their promise and complete that line.
Yes.
So I totally get what you're saying, Ben. That's one of my biggest knocks against Weta as a company, is that they very, very, very rarely, you can count on the fingers of one hand, I believe, the times that they've not even really announced, but just sort of teased or previewed that something was coming. So there's like zero preparation. The anticipation is always based around the element of surprise. That's what they thrive on, is you just don't know what's coming. And it's kind of hard to put aside funds for something that you just don't know what it is. And you often, more often than not, are caught unprepared. It's like, oh, dang, I really, really want that. I wish I had saved up for it. Or, oh, here I was thinking I was going to get this, and instead there's that, and I don't really want that. So, but yeah, I feel like this was a tricky one, because had they said, pick up Leaf-lock because we are making more, and maybe that would have generated a few more sales, but maybe not enough that they would have been, like we needed to sell 500 maybe, like to clear the way for the next one, and it would bid low enough. But now we've told everybody that we're making more, so not a good position to be in. So,
and then that's fair, because then they kind of find themselves in the position where they found themselves with the dwarves. By the time they got to the end of the dwarves, there was definitely dwarf fatigue. Yeah. I actually think what I would have been better off doing ends in a miniature scale, like 1/10 or something. Even at 1/10, a mini ant is still almost the size of a 1/6 scale human figure, right? And that's perfectly manageable for a lot of collectors, shelf space wise and price wise. And I had to think that's a little bit safer bet for Weta to do, and people can scratch that ant itch, and it's I just think that would have been a better route all the way around.
As a whole, doing all the ends in 1/6, if that's even in anywhere near their radar, is just way too ambitious.
But a lot of ants in the mini line, I feel like, is way more doable.
Sure. Well, for sure. Yeah. Like an Entmoot is something that's been thrown around a bit, and to do those in like 1/10, I think that would have been
that would look really cool and make a really cool display. So please, Weta, if you're listening, hire me.
But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it fares in the secondary market, being a low edition number.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
quite well, I'd say.
Like the War Troll, obviously it's a Hobbit piece, but it was 400 edition size, and it's been sold out for years, and it sells relatively close to retail even today.
Oh.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see it, if this thing, when it comes out, how well it's received, and how well it's done. Because the pictures that they showed, I've seen some pictures of it, at the Weta cave.
It looks really good.
It looks amazing.
Yeah,
it really does. Because some of these pictures, I don't know, different angles, it kind of looks, people have said it's kind of cartoonish, or
right.
The joints of the knees look kind of. But when I saw those pictures at Weta, I was like, this thing is actually it's gonna be amazing. I think when it actually, hits people's collections. So
yeah.
So another piece that kind of, I know, it surprised me. I wasn't expecting, was the mini Orthanc. And
Yeah,
I
that
think,
was
yeah, it was cool. Like,
that was.
do you
Sorry,
guys,
I keep interrupting.
I know, Ben, you have the sideshow Weta Orthanc. Do you have that one as well, Valkris? Because this piece does, I think, have, and this was kind of mentioned on the Flame of It, it has the potential to be a little polarizing. Because if you own the old sideshow Weta one, and maybe you paid a fair amount for it, does this diminish that one in a bit? Does it, can you, is that one worth less now? Because if you want a ruined Orthanc, you now can get one. I mean, it's smaller now, but what are you
Yeah,
guys' thoughts on that?
I don't have the original one. I have the pre-ruin one that came out
Yeah.
much later. So
Yeah.
I don't have I'm not sure quite. I know the original one is smaller in scale than the one that came out later.
Yeah, I have
Um,
the post one, and it's fairly large.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure how this one stacks up in size, like comparison, without having it and doing the measurements. Yeah, there's a bit of a raging debate going on right now as Weta's kind of starting to dip their toes into re-releasing environments, generally just doing them bigger, like Helm's Deep that we'll talk about in just a second. But so they've gone in the opposite direction with this and released a miniature Orthanc, which I don't think anybody saw this one coming.
No.
I mean, it does pair great with the 110 Saruman. It's, if you're kind of budget conscious and you just want and space conscious and you want kind of, I think it's pretty cool that they're doing these little miniatures. How that makes you feel if you have the bigger ones and if you see that as a devaluation, it's tough to say. I mean, unless you're planning to sell it, does it really matter? It's questions you kind of have to ask yourself. My feelings on this one are pretty neutral. I don't have the pre-ruin one, so this would be a simple, affordable way to own one if you don't mind the smaller scale. I didn't jump on it. I think this is open edition, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering, so I'm not in any rush to even have to think about it. So yeah, not really sure what to think, to be honest.
Yeah, what did you think of it, Ben? Because you have the sideshow Weta Orthanc, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they're doing them. But obviously they're, it's a major part of the Two Towers.
It's one of the towers, yeah.
So I mean, I think they're like, we got to do it. I mean, you got to have some, and I think that that's part of it too. You got to think like, not that long ago, you go onto Weta's website and like everything was sold out. They didn't have the classic series. They just had, you looked at, oh, I want to get a Hobbit statue. Oh, there's a bunch of sold out statues. This is great. So I think like this is going to help them draw new customers in to have these statues around. And, to us older collectors, I don't really see this as a direct assault on the old one in my mind, being that it's smaller. It'll be interesting to see how the details compare, though. I mean, I'll get this. I mean, it's $100, so I think that it's a great deal too. And I think that they need stuff like this. Some of the environments are so expensive now. I think that this is a great initial starting piece to somebody that it does look pretty good too. I mean, the detailing does look good for the size. So I think it's a cool piece. I mean, I would bet we're going to see a Barad-dûr, with 100% certainty for the Return of the King, and it'll be interesting to see how they're able to do that on the mini scale as well. So I mean, I'm pretty excited to see it. I don't like the Argonaut. That one really kind of dug into me a little bit, but this not so much. I don't know why, but I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I'm just trying to count if there's 27 steps there or not. But
looks like way more.
Yeah. But to me, I think it's a hit. I think like you guys were saying, it's great that newer collectors have the ability to own Orthanc. without paying an arm and a leg to have that in the collection. It might not be the Orthanc you really want, but you get it in your collection, and then maybe down the road you can pick up the other ones that are out there. And I do think it's a pretty cool distilled piece. I think it's not quite the right scale, but it would look cool paired to the limited edition Barad-dûr that came out a couple of years ago, which really shows how big Barad-dûr is compared to, what do they call in the books, like Barad-dûr laughs at flattery, it really hits home how much bigger Barad-dûr is than Orthanc, and this is even too big for that. It's interesting. I'm wondering if there's going to be any artists out there that create like the whole ring of Isengard to go with it, some aftermarket custom stuff.
Yeah,
because that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I think it was a hit. And I think for the price, I don't think you can go wrong.
No, $100. That's like it's unbelievable.
yeah. It's like we often joke about this hobby being like an addiction, and if this is Weta's way to sort of introduce some experimental entry level,
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. Hey kids, you want some
Get people
polystone?
hooked. It's like you buy the little guy and suddenly it's like, oh man, this is awesome. Now I gotta have the big one. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They're smart.
Yeah.
This is entry level addiction tempting.
Say no to
Stuff.
free polystone.
Yep.
So, and then the big environment this year was Helm's Deep. I don't think we need to go too into detail on that. We had a whole episode about it. For me, it was a hit. I think it's the definitive version of Helm's Deep, I think, for what's out there. And so I think it's pretty damn cool. And I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to it, but we did have a whole episode.
I mean,
on
it's been couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks now.
Something like that.
I'm forgetting when the pre-order closed. So it's given me a little time to think on it, and after the fact, okay, so the pre-order's gone. I didn't order it, and then you have that period where you think back and should I have? I'm actually currently going through that a bit more now that people have begun to receive Bag End, the big version. Ben. I am feeling regret over not getting it. It just felt so I felt so overpriced at the time, I'll be blunt, that I couldn't make myself order it. But now that I'm seeing it in people's hands and imagining it in my collection, I'm really like, damn, I wonder if I could find this from the retailers out there or in the aftermarket one of these days. Helm's Deep, I always kind of wanted to get it, even despite my criticisms about the back. Not you can't see, or the lights that I feel don't add very much, or being bummed out about where I don't feel some of the measurements kind of really match up to what you see in the movies, but those are really small nitpicks. I have a feeling somewhere down the road I'll feel even more like, man, I should have picked that up. But unfortunately, sometimes you're just not in that time and position in life where you can just, give free rein to the credit card and go nuts on getting these things. And the timing was just bad for this one. And unfortunately I couldn't get it. So it is what it is. Maybe one day.
It happens.
Yeah, I think the only thing we really never talked, obviously we didn't know the price when we talked.
Right.
So,
That's right. Yeah.
Price being what it was, I think that it definitely drew more people to it than probably would.
Yeah, I think that helped a lot of people make the decision. It made me even closer because I overestimated by quite a bit. I just tend to err on the side of caution. Weta sometimes it just goes in that direction, and they really went in the other this time, which surprised me, but it still wasn't quite enough to fully draw me in. But I'm glad that they made it way more accessible than I thought it was going to be.
So at that
the
price,
edition size still surprised me how low it was. It was
Yeah, I
below
thought it'd be
1,000,
higher.
and I'm not sure what that says, but I thought it would be higher, to be honest.
so with that price, Ben, are you getting two?
I mean, probably. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not too worried about finding it. I didn't order it
right.
or pre-order directly from Weta, but there's a couple good retailers around here that still have it for
Mhm.
pre-order. But there's just so many things right now.
That was a long list. Just
I mean, that's just Weta.
That's just Weta.
We didn't
I
get
know,
all
yeah.
the other crazy
Yeah.
things that are coming.
A
Yeah,
lot of demands on not enough money.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
the space issues, even the Weta stuff most of those things are very large.
Mhm.
And then I ordered even more crazy things from Infinity and Queen and all these other wild people that are making stuff for this.
And I
Yeah.
wish we had time to get into some of the newcomers to the game, because it's like Infinity and Pure Arts and Dark Side. They're making some pretty cool stuff, and they're all huge.
I mean,
So,
it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting with
yeah.
with what's going on right now. I mean, all the options that you have.
Mhm.
And Andrew touched on it when he was talking to you in one of his first episodes. The fact that it's just impossible to pre-order everything. You get into the groove of this, and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna miss this or miss that. And
Mm.
there's a point where you got to just be like, hey, you got to get the stuff that you feel works with your collection, but also works within your confines of your monetary abilities as well. Because if you
Mhm.
get going too hard, you can get yourself in some trouble, especially when there's the amount of stuff that's available now. It's possible. I guess it's not impossible, but it would. I don't know. You probably have to spend $40,000 or $50,000 a year if you
Mhm.
were
Easily.
maybe
Yeah.
even more than that. To be honest,
Yeah.
with what's going on right now with all the companies.
Yeah. So that's basically it for what is major releases this year. What were some things you guys were hoping to see for the 20th anniversary of the Two Towers, but just it didn't come out this year? For me, I really thought we were going to get an Aragorn at Helm's Deep this year. I thought there's a lot of Aragorn. I want to say a lot. There's 3 or 4 Aragorns out there, and they're all in his ranger gear. And I thought, what better time than the 20th anniversary of the Two Towers to bring us Aragorn at Helm's Deep? That's something that seasoned collectors can get. And new collectors, that would have been an Aragorn for everyone, right? And I was really hoping to see that. And maybe, I don't know, Weta seems to be a bit behind on their releases, but I don't see it happening. That was something I was really hoping to see, and it didn't happen this year. Did you guys have anything you were really hoping to see this year, but didn't happen?
Not for me, really. No, I'm actually really thinking about that. No, I don't think. I mean, Helm's Deep is such a big part of the movie that it was almost a given that something would be released
Mhm.
having to do with it. Obviously, they went with the environment, and I'll use the term now. It is iconic, that fortress. It's very much representative of that middle chapter. So, yeah, I don't think it was a surprise that was coming. In terms of character depictions, I don't think there's nothing new that hasn't been done before. Maybe that specific Aragorn, but we did have Aragorns before. We've had Gandalf the Whites before. I guess the one piece that does stick out is the Dead Marshes, but that's sort of in a whole world of its own.
Mhm. I mean,
No,
Leaf-lock.
to be honest, thinking back at the movie itself, I mean, they could have gone crazy and done like a Witch King on the Fell Beast for the
Like
scene at Osgiliath. But I mean, I think what a lot of these companies have to consider is like, what have others done before? How well is that done? Do we want to revisit that? So, I mean, all I can think of is the piece that was done by Aaron Studios not that long ago. But I couldn't see them doing that in 1.6, maybe. I know they've surprised us lately with so many big pieces that who knows? I'm sure it's probably in the pipe. At some point, we're gonna get a 1/6 fell beast. But yeah, other than that, no, I can't really think of. I would have liked to have seen. Okay, that you only really see them for a few moments, but maybe a new Easterling statue.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I keep hearing that there's a scene in the Battle of Minas Tirith where you see the
Yeah.
Easterlings battling in the street. I've tried to catch that. I've actually looked at screen
It's-
caps, and it's so messy I can't even
It's-
where is exactly are the Easterlings, but
Yeah,
because you do get a lot of the Haradrim, obviously, but not the Easterlings. You see them marching up to the Black Gates and Two Towers, and then that's it. He
it is a shame, isn't it?
It is,
so
because it's such a cool
after-
design.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the old sideshow Weta piece, which I think is actually great. Maybe I'll just have to hunt that one down one day and have that culture represented on my collection. But anyways, that's a total aside. But the answer is no, I didn't have a particular vision of something that I wanted. Maybe it's, I was just talking about, it bugs me that Weta doesn't preview things at a time, but maybe this time I just wanted to be surprised. And I mean, Helm's Deep was cool, Leaf-lock me.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing there for me, Two Towers wise.
How about you, Ben?
I mean, I just in my thoughts, I was hoping that we would see, the return of Gandalf as the Master Collection, but that was just a dream, really.
Mm.
But we can still go there. They have other years where they'll be doing. If the plan is to do one a year,
That's true.
They'll be
But
looking for scenes
would,
to redo, and that one's on the.
I would love to see that one. I think that would be that could be really well done. But I think for the Hobbit, I would have loved to see a Bjorn. For the 10th anniversary, because I mean that's that would have been something that hadn't been done, and I think there's enough of an audience that people would have bought that. I mean, I believe that. I don't know if that's reality, because obviously if he's not been done yet, there's probably some reasoning behind that.
Right.
But
So I'd buy one. I think Bishop would buy at least 10.
so we got 12.
Yeah, always,
Well,
always
We got
happy you would probably
12.
join them.
But I just think that they could eat. There's such an amazing character, and there's many ways that you could depict him. But I hope that at some point they actually are able to do that.
I could see them doing like similar to the Gollum Smeagol mini, do the Bjorn with maybe his axe, and then him in bear form. I could see them doing Jacqueline Hyde kind of thing. Now that I was thinking about it too.
That would be an ideal character for something like that.
Yeah.
But I would take it either way, in
Right.
in man form or in bear form. But
I was thinking too as well. Edoras, I think an Edoras environment would have been really cool. Like the whole Mount Sunday, with the wooden palisade, like the whole city. That would have been
not just
I did expect to, and maybe that's because Daniel said on the forum, expect a similar release schedule for environments this year as last year. And last year we got 3 pretty good environments, and then this year we only really got the one. Now we're expecting the Black Gates, beginning of the new year here, and it maybe and it could have been released this year, but Edoras I think would have been a cool, and then as I was thinking about it too, Edoras, Aragorn at Helm's Deep. When I think of Two Towers, I think of wargs, like Sharku on warg would have been a cool piece. I know you hate the hyena wargs, Val, but Sharku on warg would have been a cool piece. There's only one warg, and it's what's his name, Gothmog I think that's his name on his on his warg, as he's kind of riding up and down the ranks at the siege of Minas Tirith. But a warg would have been cool. So Sharku and a warg, and then for the Uruk jumping the Chariots of Fire Uruk, the one with the torch as he's about to jump into that culvert at Helm's Deep.
Yes.
That would have been a cool, Weta went through that kind of phase where they like the really dynamic statues a couple of years ago. And you saw that with a lot of the Hobbit ones. And that would have been a cool you could have had him mid-leap, with his torch, and you had the arrows poking out of his shoulders. That would have been a cool statue. I think that would have sold well. I think it would have sold better than Leaf-lock. And I'll go back to the Aragorn, there's plenty of Aragorns in his ranger gear, and that's something that a new collector and an old collector could get, because how many Aragorns you got, Ben? You got the sideshow one, you got the sideshow Weta one, you got Amen Hen, and he's all wearing the same thing basically.
Oh yeah.
And then there's Aragorn at the Black Gates on his horse, but unless you have that diorama of that sideshow did of him on Helm at the wall of Helms, there is no Helm's Deep Aragorn, and that would have how many guys passed on the classic series Aragorn because they're like, well, is he as good, or is he good enough to knock my sideshow Aragorn off its perch? Well, I don't know. That sideshow Aragorn is pretty good.
The premium format one you're speaking
Yeah. Well, no, not the maquette one.
Okay.
They got the interchangeable hood, and that was pretty good. And I don't know, maybe they would have been better to do Helm's Deep. That's my opinion. So, but thank you for joining us tonight, Ben, and for those of you who are still listening, thank you for. And I hope you enjoyed the episode, and have a happy New Year, and hopefully we'll be back soon, and maybe we'll do an episode here in the near future talking about things we hope to see for the Return of the King 20th anniversary next year. It's going to be a big year collecting wise. We're going to have very hurting wallets, and there's so many things going to come out next year. It's impossible for everyone to get what they want next year, but hopefully everyone gets a little bit of something that they want next year. So I hope you enjoyed our 2022 year in review of Weta's releases, and we hope to see you next episode.
Remy, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.